Monuments, place names and plaques that recall painful or shameful events of the past are controversial all around the world. Arguments about these kinds of objects often swing between the two poles of calls to destroy them completely or preserve them untouched. But are those the only choices? Join me for this short taster lecture on global debates on monuments and historical memory and what to do with statues, place names and plaques of controversial figures and events. I'm Sally Hill, Professor of Global Studies here at Te Herenga Waka, Victoria University of Wellington. All around the world, there are ongoing debates about how we remember the past and how it's made visible around us. These discussions often come up in the context of traumatic histories of racism and colonialism, as we've seen in recent years in protests against statues of figures like Confederate General Robert E. Lee in the US, slave trader Edward Colston in the UK, and colonial explorer James Cook here in Australasia. These protests highlight a growing awareness and demand for a more nuanced understanding of how what we choose to commemorate from the past impacts the present. While some people argue that these kinds of monuments should be kept as a record of history, or that they represent a form of heritage that needs to be preserved, protests against them make the point that they're not simply dead relics, but part of a story about the past that can still cause pain and reinforce injustice in the present. Some scholars refer to these kinds of controversial monuments and sites of memory as difficult or dissonant heritage. They use these terms to describe situations where there is conflict or disagreement about how the past is understood and represented. This kind of conflict can crystallize around monuments when there are competing ideas about what a particular object or site means, and about whose experiences and viewpoints should be considered valid. So, what should be done with these kinds of places and objects? The two most common responses are either to advocate for them to be destroyed, or, at the other end of the spectrum, simply preserved as is. But there are other options, some of which offer opportunities to grapple with the past in ways that can have a positive impact on the present. Let's travel now to the other side of the world and take a look at one example of a deeply problematic monument. This one is in the town of Bolzano, or Bozen, in northern Italy. Bolzano's town finance department is housed in the former local headquarters of the Italian Fascist Party. Its facade has a massive frieze showing fascist dictator Benito Mussolini on horseback, right arm raised in a fascist salute, with the fascist slogan, "Believe, Obey, Fight," carved below him. Despite the fact that Italy's constitution explicitly rejects any celebration of fascism, and that the region was deeply scarred by Mussolini's regime, this monument had remained in place largely untouched. It was a painful reminder of a brutal period of Italy's history and its disastrous alliance with Nazi Germany. And, on top of that, a popular gathering point for contemporary neo-fascist extremists. So the monument was a genuine source of conflict and distress to the local community. But rather than destroying or just leaving the monument, a panel made up of local community members and experts in history, communication, architecture, museum curation and art was put together to represent the town and decide what to do. They opted for a solution that counters the violent message of the monument and explains its historical significance. Artists Arnold Holzneck and Michele Bernardi superimposed over the monument a quotation from German Jewish philosopher Hannah Arendt that reads, "Nobody has the right to obey," in the three local languages, while information panels in the square explain its history and context. Effectively challenging Mussolini's call to believe in, obey and fight for an oppressive, racist and imperialist regime, the new writing still allows the original monument to be seen. But viewers are invited to reflect on the complex history behind the monument and its ongoing meaning in the present. Most importantly, the monument no longer serves as a gathering point for far-right extremists who want to connect the messages of historical fascism and imperialism to contemporary xenophobia and racism. This example suggests one approach to thinking about what to do with relics of a painful past, incorporating the perspectives of different members of a community and using knowledge and insights from different fields to propose new, inclusive and educational solutions. This is the kind of approach you'll learn about in global studies, which will help you make connections across different disciplines and cultural contexts to find innovative solutions to thorny global problems. Comparing case studies from around the world, we look at lessons we can learn from them here in Aotearoa, as well as exploring what our local experiences can bring to pressing global debates about issues such as redressing historical injustice. Study for a Bachelor of Global Studies at Te Herenga Waka, Victoria University of Wellington.